Welcome to Storytales. Please like this video and subscribe to Storytales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. Tom Ward stood motionless in his glass-walled study, watching storm clouds gather over the Atlantic. The waves below crashed against the granite cliffs, sending white spray 30 feet into the air. Nature's violence served as a fitting backdrop for his thoughts. His mansion, a masterpiece of glass and steel perched on the highest point of Crescent Harbor, would soon fill with guests celebrating his 5th wedding anniversary. 5 years of calculated moves, strategic planning, and building an empire. 5 years of what he'd thought was a perfect partnership. The security feed on his tablet showed staff preparing for tonight's celebration. Caterers arranged silver trays. Bartenders stocked the bars. Florists positioned arrangements of white roses and blue hydrangeas, Alina's favorites. Everything precise, controlled, exactly as he demanded. A message notification lit up his phone screen. His security team's daily report included timestamps of every entrance and exit from the property over the past week. Tom's eyes fixed on one particular pattern, Alina's training sessions. No longer 3 times weekly, but 4. Each session running longer than scheduled. Each followed by a gap in her location data. The tablet switched to a new camera view. In the courtyard, Alina directed staff with elegant gestures, her fitted dress highlighting every curve. Even from this distance, Tom could read the tension in her movements, the forced nature of her smile. Mr. Ward, his house manager, Phillips, appeared in the doorway. The audio technicians need approval for the speaker placement. Show me. Tom followed Phillips through the house, his footsteps silent on Italian marble. Every surface gleamed, every angle calculated for maximum impact. He designed this home as a statement of power, and tonight it would serve its purpose perfectly. The technicians walked him through their setup, unaware that his mind cataloged every nervous gesture, every averted glance. People revealed so much without realizing it, like how Alina's hand trembled slightly when she'd handed him coffee this morning, how she checked her phone 12 times during breakfast. The placement is fine, he told the technicians. Ensure the volume allows for conversation. We want ambience, not disruption. Back in his study, Tom opened his laptop. Files appeared with each keystroke. Financial records, phone logs, surveillance photos. The digital breadcrumbs of betrayal laid out in perfect clarity. He'd known for weeks, watching it unfold with clinical detachment. Tonight would mark the beginning of his response to a soft knock at the door. Tom. Alina's voice carried a hint of uncertainty. Do you have a moment? Of course. He closed the laptop as she entered, noting how she hesitated before approaching his desk. Her red dress caught the late afternoon light, making her look like she was dipped in blood. The florist finished early, she said. Come see the arrangements? I want your opinion. Tom smiled, the expression not quite reaching his eyes. Lead the way. They walked through the house together, Alina pointing out details, her voice carrying forced enthusiasm. Tom made appropriate responses while observing how she kept precise distance between them. No casual touches, no unnecessary closeness. The roses are stunning, she said, gesturing to a massive arrangement in the foyer. I wasn't sure about mixing them with hydrangeas, but they're perfect, Tom interrupted softly. Everything's perfect. Alina turned to him, searching his face. You seem distant today. Work on my mind. The Morrison account on our anniversary? A flash of relief crossed her features, quickly masked by practiced concern. You're right. Tom touched her arm, feeling her slight flinch. Tonight is about us. Nothing else matters. Her smile wavered. I should check on the catering. Guests will arrive soon. Tom watched her walk away, her steps quick, almost fleeing. In the polished marble floor, her reflection fractured into pieces. A fitting metaphor, he thought, for what was to come. The first guests arrived as sunset painted the sky in shades of purple and gold. Tom greeted each arrival personally, his courteous smile a mask of precision. Board members, local politicians, social climbers, all eager to be seen at the most exclusive event in Crescent Harbor. Ward, you've outdone yourself, Richard Blake said, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing server. The board member's ruddy face reflected years of similar parties. This place looks like something out of a magazine. Alina's touch, Tom replied smoothly. She has an eye for these things. Speaking of eyes, Blake leaned closer, breath heavy with alcohol. That trainer fellow can't keep his offer. Bit inappropriate, don't you think? Tom's expression remained neutral. Which trainer would that be? You know the one. Ex-military guy. Built like a brick wall. Trey something. Ah, Dalton. Tom sipped his whiskey. Yes, I've noticed his attention to detail. Blake shifted uncomfortably, sensing something beneath Tom's calm tone. Well, can't blame a guy for looking, right? Your wife's a knockout. Indeed. Tom's smile didn't waver. Excuse me, I see the governor's wife just arrived. He moved through the crowd with practiced ease, noting every interaction, every whispered conversation. The string quartet played Mozart, the music drifting through rooms filled with Crescent Harbor's elite. In the great room, Alina held court among a group of socialites, her laugh carrying a brittle edge. Near the bar, Tom observed Trey Dalton holding forth to an admiring audience of younger women. The trainer wore a suit that strained across his shoulders, clearly chosen to emphasize his physical presence. Most people don't understand real combat, Trey was saying, his voice carrying that particular mix of arrogance and false modesty. It's not like the movies. When I was deployed, fascinating subject, Tom interrupted smoothly, joining the group. Though perhaps not ideal dinner conversation. Trey straightened, chin lifting slightly. Tom, great party, man. I was just telling these ladies about military service. Yes, I heard. Tom's tone remained pleasant. Admirable work. Though I imagine private training offers different challenges. Speaking of training, one of the women said, Alina looks amazing. Whatever you're doing with her is clearly working. Tom caught the flash of panic in Trey's eyes, the slight tensing of his jaw. Yes, Tom said softly. My wife seems very dedicated to her fitness goals. For sessions a week now, Trey added quickly. She's one of my most committed clients. 4. Tom raised an eyebrow. Must have missed that update. Work keeps me rather occupied. That's the problem with you tech guys, Trey said, forcing a laugh. Too focused on screens, not enough on the real world. An interesting perspective. Tom swirled his whiskey. Though I find reality often reveals itself through careful observation. The threat beneath his words sailed past the women, but Trey caught it. The trainer's confident smile faltered. If you'll excuse me, Tom said, I should find my wife. Time for the anniversary toast. He moved away, leaving Trey staring after him. In the reflection of a window, Tom watched the trainer down his drink in one gulp, hands slightly shaking. Tom found Alina on the terrace, standing too close to Trey. They jumped apart at his approach, guilt written in every movement. Darling, Alina said, her voice too bright. We were just discussing fitness, no doubt. Tom's smile remained fixed. Unfortunately, I need to steal you away. Time for a toast. The string quartet fell silent as Tom and Alina took their positions near the grand staircase. Guests gathered around, crystal glasses raised in anticipation. Tom surveyed the crowd, noting the eager faces, the hungry eyes seeking drama or validation. If I could have everyone's attention, he began, his voice carrying effortlessly across the room. Years of tech presentations and board meetings had honed this skill to perfection. First, I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. 5 years ago, I married the most captivating woman I've ever known. He turned to Alina, studying her face. To others, she appeared the perfect wife, beautiful, poised, adoring. But Tom saw the truth beneath her mask, the slight tremor in her hand, the way her eyes wouldn't quite meet his. Every day since has been an education in beauty, ambition, and surprise. He raised his glass, watching her expression flicker at his choice of words. To my wife, who never fails to keep life interesting. The crowd echoed the toast, oblivious to the weight behind his words. Alina recovered quickly, lifting her own glass with practiced grace. And to my brilliant husband, she added, her voice carrying that artificial warmth she'd perfected over the years. "Who gives me everything I could ever want?" Almost everything, Tom thought as they clinked glasses. Some appetites couldn't be satisfied with mere luxury. Some people needed the thrill of destruction, even if it meant destroying themselves in the process. The party resumed its rhythm. Tom played his role perfectly, sharing just enough business talk to seem engaged, but not obsessed. All while watching the subtle dance between his wife and her lover, the touch here, Trey's hand brushing Alina's arm as he passed. A glance there, her eyes following his movement across the room. The trainer always seemed to materialize wherever Alina went, like a shadow with too much substance. Quite a turnout. Clara Winslow's quiet voice caught Tom's attention. The elderly neighbor stood beside him, her shrewd eyes missing nothing. Though some guests seemed to have forgotten, they're not at a gym. Tom followed her gaze to where Trey held court near the bar, his muscled frame dominating the space. "Everyone has their particular talents, Mrs. Winslow." Indeed, she studied Tom's face. "Though some talents lead to trouble, wouldn't you say?" "Trouble has many forms," Tom replied softly. "The trick is recognizing it before it recognizes you." Clara's eyes narrowed. "You see more than you show, Mr. Ward. That's a dangerous gift. Or a useful one." Tom smiled faintly. "Depending on your perspective." The old woman touched his arm, her grip surprisingly firm. "Just remember, the deadliest predators never bare their teeth until the strike." She melted back into the crowd, leaving Tom to consider her words. Across the room, Alina laughed at something Trey said, the sound brittle as breaking glass. Near midnight, Tom found solitude on the cliffside terrace. The moon hung low over the ocean, painting a silver path across the dark water. Behind him, the door opened and closed with deliberate force. "Quite a view." Trey's voice carried that false confidence that made Tom's jaw tighten. "But I guess you're used to it. Nature's power tends to demand respect." Tom replied without turning. "It's not something one gets used to." Speaking of power, Trey moved to stand beside him, too close, deliberately invading his space. The younger man's breath carried the sharp scent of expensive scotch. "We should talk." "Should we?" "About Alina." Tom turned slowly, taking in Trey's aggressive stance. Even in the dim light, he could see the flush of alcohol on the trainer's face, the slight sway in his posture. "What about my wife interests you so much, Mr. Dalton?" "Cut the act." Trey's voice dropped lower, threatening. "You know what's going on? You're not blind." "No," Tom agreed softly. "I'm not." "Then you know you're not enough for her." Trey stepped closer, using his physical presence like a weapon. "She needs more than some tech nerd who's married to his computer. She needs a real man." Tom studied him with the same detached interest he might give an insect under glass. "Is that what you consider yourself? A real man?" "I could break you in half," Trey growled. "Could you?" Tom's voice remained perfectly calm. "Why don't you come by tomorrow? We can discuss this properly, without an audience. Say around noon." The invitation seemed to throw Trey off balance. He'd clearly expected either confrontation or cowardice, not this cool composure. "Fine," he managed finally. "Tomorrow. We'll settle this." "Indeed we will." Tom smiled faintly. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have guests to attend to." The last guest departed shortly after 1, leaving the mansion echoing with silence. Staff moved efficiently through the rooms, restoring order, avoiding Tom's gaze as he made final inspections in their bedroom. He listened to Alina's nighttime routine, water running, bottles clicking, drawers opening and closing. Her phone buzzed quietly under her pillow when she finally slipped under the covers. Tom lay still, eyes closed, breathing steady, waiting. After a few minutes, Alina checked his face in the dim light, then carefully retrieved her phone. The blue glow illuminated her features as she typed out a message, unaware that her husband saw everything in the reflection of the window. When she finally drifted off to sleep, Tom opened his eyes. He watched her for a long time, his mind moving through scenarios with cold precision. Physical confrontation would be satisfying but messy. Financial destruction more elegant, but perhaps too impersonal. No, this situation called for something more comprehensive that he rose silently and made his way to his study. The house was dark and still, the only sound the distant crash of waves against the cliff. Tom sat at his desk and opened his laptop, the screen casting a pale glow across his features. Files appeared with each keystroke. Banking records, phone logs, employment histories, the digital breadcrumbs of lives laid bare before him. Tom had built his fortune on understanding systems, on finding weak points and exploiting them. People were just another type of system when you got down to it. The sun was rising when he finally closed the laptop. In the kitchen, he started the coffee maker, filling the house with the rich aroma of fresh coffee. He heard Alina stirring upstairs, then the soft pad of her feet on the stairs. "You're up early," she said, accepting the cup he offered. "Couldn't sleep." He watched her take a sip. "Too much on my mind." "About what?" "The future." Tom's smile was gentle, almost kind. "Everything changes, doesn't it? Whether we want it to or not." Alina looked at him sharply, but his expression gave away nothing. Before she could respond, the doorbell rang. "Bit early for visitors," she said. "Actually, I'm expecting someone." Tom set down his cup. "Why don't you go get dressed? This won't take long." He waited until she disappeared upstairs before moving to the door. Trey stood on the doorstep, his expression a mix of aggression and uncertainty. "Come in," Tom said pleasantly. "Let's talk." The door closed behind them with a soft click, like the sound of a trap being sprung. Tom Ward's study felt colder in the morning light. He sat behind his desk, watching Trey Dalton pace like a caged animal. The trainer's confidence from last night had eroded, replaced by growing unease. "You want to talk," Tom said, his voice carrying quiet authority. "So talk." Trey stopped pacing, squaring his shoulders. "Look, about last night." "About my wife," Tom corrected. "Let's be precise." "Fine." "About Alina." Trey's jaw tightened. "You can't give her what she needs. You're too busy with your computers, your deals. When's the last time you really paid attention to her?" Tom's lips curved slightly. "You mistake observation for neglect, Mr. Dalton. I see everything." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I know about the hotel meetings." Tom opened a drawer, removed a folder. "The River's Edge, room 412. Every Tuesday and Thursday after her extended training sessions." Color drained from Trey's face. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Tom spread photos across his desk. "Here's you entering the hotel. Here's Alina 20 minutes later. Here's your bank statements showing the room charges. Shall I continue?" "You had us followed." Trey's voice rose. "You sick?" "I protect my interests," Tom cut in. "Something you should have considered before stepping into my territory." Trey moved forward, fists clenched. "I'm not afraid of you, Ward." "No." Tom remained seated, perfectly still. "Then why are you sweating?" "I could end you right now." "Could you?" Tom's voice carried genuine curiosity. "Tell me, how would that work?" "You attack me in my home, where every room has security cameras, where my death would lead directly to you." He gestured to a chair. "Sit down, Mr. Dalton. Let's discuss your future." Trey sat, tension radiating from every muscle. "What do you want?" "Want? Nothing. I'm giving you something instead." Tom pushed a document across the desk. "Your resignation from the gym, effective immediately. There's a job waiting for you in Seattle. Pay is double what you make here." "You're trying to buy me off." "No, Mr. Dalton. I'm giving you a choice." Tom's eyes hardened. "Take the job, leave town today, never contact Alina again. Or stay, and watch your life disintegrate piece by piece." "You're threatening me?" "Threatening implies uncertainty about the outcome." Tom smiled faintly. "I'm explaining what will happen. Your choice merely determines the speed." Trey stood abruptly. "You think you can control everything with money? Push people around like pieces on a board." "Money is merely a tool," Tom replied. "Like those muscles you're so proud of. The difference is my tools work at any distance." He checked his watch. "You have 1 hour to decide. The Seattle job offer expires at noon. Go to hell." Trey turned toward the door. "Before you leave," Tom called after him, "check your phone. Your gym access has been revoked. Your client list has been reassigned." Amazing how quickly digital systems can change, isn't it? Trey fumbled for his phone, face reddening as he saw the notifications. You can't do this. I already have. Tom's voice remained calm. That's just the beginning. Every minute you stay in this town, something else will slip away. Bank accounts, credit cards, professional certifications, all those digital threads that make up a modern life. He stood slowly. How long before your clients get anonymous emails about inappropriate behavior? How many complaints to the fitness board before your license is reviewed? You're insane, Trey whispered. No, I'm methodical. Tom walked to the door, opened it. 1 hour, Mr. Dalton. Choose wisely. Upstairs, Alina was finishing her morning coffee when Tom entered the kitchen. She wore silk pajamas and a carefully neutral expression. Everything okay? She asked. I heard voices. A business matter. Tom poured himself coffee. Nothing important. Sounded heated. Some people react poorly to reality. He sat across from her, sliding a thick envelope across the table. Speaking of reality, Alina's hand trembled slightly as she opened the envelope. Divorce papers spilled out, each page tagged for signature. Tom, she whispered. What is this? A conclusion. He sipped his coffee. Everything's prepared. Clean break. No negotiations needed. But why? His laugh held no warmth. Shall we discuss room 412? Or would you prefer a broader conversation about loyalty? Alina's face went white. You knew. I know everything. Tom's voice remained conversational. Every meeting, every message, every lie. I can explain. No need. He stood, straightening his jacket. Your credit cards are canceled. Bank accounts frozen. The car service will take you wherever you'd like to go, but the mansion's codes change at midnight. You can't do this. Alina rose, anger replacing shock. I'll fight you. You'll what? Tom asked softly. Use the money you don't have? The lawyers you can't afford? Perhaps your friend, Mr. Dalton, will help. Though I suspect he's rather busy with his own concerns right now. What did you do to him? Nothing he didn't choose. Tom moved to the door. Sign the papers, Alina. Make this easy on yourself. Or what? He turned back, studied her like a curious specimen. You know how viruses spread? How quickly a reputation can be infected? One leak, one rumor, one suspicious transaction. It's fascinating how fast people turn on someone once doubt takes root. You threatening me? Warning you. Tom's smile didn't reach his eyes. The papers are simple. You walk away with nothing, but your dignity intact. Fight me, and I'll dismantle your world so thoroughly that even your own family won't return your calls. I gave you 5 years of my life, Alina said, voice breaking. And I gave you everything you wanted. Tom's tone hardened, until everything wasn't enough. He left her there, surrounded by papers that would erase her from his life. In his study, he made a single phone call. It's done, he told his lawyer. Start the proceedings. No negotiations, no delays. She'll fight it, the lawyer warned. No, Tom said softly. She won't. By evening, Alina's world had contracted to a single suitcase and a growing list of closed doors. Her friends' phones went straight to voicemail. Her usual restaurants couldn't find her reservations. The spa canceled her standing appointments. She stood in their bedroom, his bedroom now, packing what little she could claim as purely hers. The closet that once held designer dresses stood half empty, a void as stark as her future. The car's waiting, Tom said from the doorway. Alina turned, makeup perfect despite the tears she'd shed. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my concern. He watched her with clinical detachment. Though I hear the river's edge has vacancies. Stop it. She stepped toward him. We could talk about this. Work through it, like you worked through your guilt. Tom raised an eyebrow. Or shall we discuss how you worked through your training sessions? It meant nothing, she whispered. Trey was just a mistake? A diversion? Tom's voice carried genuine curiosity. What was he, Alina? What made you think he was worth the risk? I was bored. The words burst out of her. Is that what you want to hear? You were always working, always planning, always so perfectly in control. And now? Tom smiled faintly. How's my control feeling to you? Alina's face crumpled. Why are you doing this? Why not just divorce me quietly? Why destroy everything? Because destruction, when done properly, should be absolute. Tom checked his watch. The car won't wait forever. What about Trey? What did you do to him? Mr. Dalton made his choice. Tom stepped aside from the doorway. I simply helped him understand the consequences. You're a monster, Alina whispered. No. Tom's eyes were cold. I'm efficient. A monster would hurt you. I'm simply removing you from my life with the same precision I use to remove any defective component. He watched her walk away, suitcase rolling behind her like a final punctuation mark. In the silence that followed, Tom began systematically removing every trace of her from the house. Tom sat in his study, monitoring multiple screens as his plan unfolded. Each display showed a different aspect of Alina's crumbling world. Bank accounts, social media, private messages, everything connected, everything vulnerable. His phone buzzed. A security alert from the mansion's east wing. Sir, Philip's voice carried tension. Mrs. Ward, she's trying to enter through the garden door. Should I call the police? No need. Tom switched to the security feed. Let her wear herself out. He watched Alina pound on the glass, her composure finally cracking. After 5 minutes, she slumped against the door, defeated. Tom pressed a button on his desk. What's wrong? His voice echoed through the garden speakers. Forgot the new codes already? Alina's head snapped up. Tom, please just talk to me. We're talking now. He kept his voice neutral. Though I prefer this distance. Safer for everyone. What do you want from me? Nothing. Tom smiled at the camera. That's what makes this perfect. I want nothing from you. Not explanations, not apologies, not promises. Nothing. Then why? Her voice cracked. Why all this? Because actions have consequences. Tom leaned back. Check your phone. Alina fumbled with her device. A message appeared. You were never in control. What is this? She whispered. The beginning. Tom pressed another button. Now, check the pool house. Alina walked slowly to the small building. Through the windows, she could see something on the central table. Her hand shook as she tried the door. It opened. Inside, arranged with military precision, lay Trey's belongings. His watch, his wallet, his phone, all covered in a fine layer of dark soil. Tom, she breathed. What did you do? His voice came through hidden speakers. I'm right here in my study. Check the security footage if you don't believe me. I haven't left this room in hours. These are Trey's things. How did you perhaps he left them? Tom's voice carried false concern. Or perhaps they found their way here on their own. Objects have interesting journeys sometimes. Stop it. Alina grabbed the items. This isn't funny. No, Tom agreed. It's not funny at all. Check the drawer. Her hand trembled as she pulled open the table's single drawer. Inside lay a set of dog tags, their metal surface scorched and blackened. This is insane, she whispered. Insanity implies lack of control. Tom watched her through the cameras. This is methodology, precision, cause and effect. Alina ran from the pool house, dog tags clutched in her hand. At the mansion's main gate, she stopped, breathing hard. Why are you doing this? She screamed at the cameras. Because destruction should be thorough. Tom's voice surrounded her. Complete. Like your betrayal. He cut the audio, watching her collapse against the gate. His lawyer's number was already dialed. Release the photos to the media, he said when the man answered. All of them. Which set? Start with the River's Edge meetings. Then the earlier ones. Let's show everyone the pattern of behavior. It'll destroy her reputation. Yes, Tom agreed. That's rather the point. The media explosion happened exactly as Tom planned. First, a small local blog published photos of Alina entering the River's Edge. Then larger outlets picked up the story, adding context about the high-profile divorce. Anonymous sources provided more details. Past indiscretions. Financial irregularities. Each revelation calculated to strip away another layer of Alina's carefully constructed image. Detective Mercer arrived as the third wave of stories broke. Quite a media circus, he said, settling into the study's visitor chair. People love scandal. Tom didn't look up from his laptop. Human nature, I suppose. Like they love revenge. Mercer placed a file on the desk. Trey Dalton's still missing. Is he? Tom finally met the detective's gaze. Or did he simply choose to leave? People do that sometimes. When circumstances become uncomfortable. Found something interesting. Mercer opened the file. Security footage from the river's edge shows you entering the hotel the day before Dalton disappeared. Of course it does. Tom smiled faintly. I own the hotel. Convenient. I own many things, detective. Hotels. Companies. Networks. Tom leaned forward. Would you like to know what else I own? The firm handling your mortgage. The bank holding your pension. The company managing your children's college funds. Is that a threat? An observation? Tom's voice remained calm. About how interconnected modern life has become. How fragile financial systems can be. How easily things can malfunction. Mercer stood slowly. You think you're untouchable. No. Tom rose to match him. I think I'm careful. Methodical. Precise. I think I understand systems better than most people, including the justice system. We'll find him. Will you? Tom walked to the window. Or will you find a man who chose to take a better job? Who left town ahead of scandal? Who's now working happily in Seattle? All proper paperwork in place. That's not what happened, isn't it? Tom turned back. Check your email, detective. I believe you'll find Mr. Dalton's new employment contract, signed and dated. His lease agreement. His utility bills. All perfectly documented. Mercer's phone buzzed. He checked it, face darkening. These could be faked. Could they? By all means, investigate. Call his new employer. Check his bank records. Everything's there, detective. Everything's legal. Everything's perfect. After Mercer left, Tom received another text from Alina. The photos and the media. How did you get them? He replied for the first time. The same way I got everything else. I watched. I waited. I documented. Please, she texted back. I'll tell you everything about Trey. Tom's response was swift. There's nothing to tell. He's in Seattle, building a new life. Unlike you. He attached a photo to his next message. Trey's dog tags, now hanging from his study lamp. Below them, he typed, some men don't get angry. They get even. Alina's response came hours later. You're a monster. No, he wrote back. I'm thorough. Check tomorrow's papers. The next morning's headlines detailed financial irregularities at charities where Alina had served on boards. Anonymous sources questioned missing funds. Old colleagues suddenly remembered inappropriate behavior. Tom watched his screens as Alina's phone lit up with calls from reporters, former friends, angry board members. Each call another nail in the coffin of her social life. Detective Mercer made one final attempt, arriving unannounced at sunset. This has to stop, he said from the study doorway. What has to stop? Tom didn't turn from his window. The media coverage? The investigations into financial misconduct? The revelations about past behavior? All of that comes from legitimate sources, detective. All documented. All legal. You're destroying her. No. Tom finally turned. She destroyed herself. I'm merely ensuring everyone knows it. And Dalton is living his best life in Seattle. Tom smiled. Feel free to visit him. The address is in your file. After Mercer left, Tom stood on his cliffside terrace. Below, waves crashed against rocks with mindless violence. Nature's way was chaos. His way was precision. His phone buzzed one last time. Alina again. I'm leaving town. You've won. Tom didn't reply. Victory wasn't in the leaving. Victory was in the complete dismantling of everything she'd thought she controlled. Her reputation, her social standing, her very identity. The sun set over the ocean, painting his glass empire in deepening shadows. In the distance, storm clouds gathered, promising violence. Tom smiled. Let them come. He'd built his life to withstand any storm, and now he'd proved he could destroy just as efficiently as he created. The mansion stood silent around him, purged of betrayal, wiped clean of weakness. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new battles, new victories. But tonight he savored the perfect execution of a plan long in the making. Because true power wasn't in the destruction itself, but in the calculated precision with which it was achieved. Rain pelted against the mansion's windows as Tom reviewed the latest reports. Alina's financial ruin was complete. Every account drained. Every credit line closed. Every asset frozen. His phone lit up with a call from his lawyer. She's getting desperate, the lawyer said without preamble. Try to access her old trust fund this morning. How did that work out? Funds were already transferred. Every penny moved to offshore accounts, just like you planned. Tom smiled faintly. And the trustees resigned yesterday. All of them. Something about potential liability concerns. Perfect. Tom switched screens on his laptop. What about the media coverage? 3 more outlets picked up the story about financial irregularities. Board resignations are hitting the morning papers. She's toxic now. Nobody will touch her. And Mr. Dalton, still in Seattle. Employment records, apartment lease, everything solid. Detective Mercer's running out of questions to ask. Good. Tom closed his laptop. Time for the final piece, then. He opened his safe, removed a small box. Inside, Trey's dog tags caught the light, their burned edges telling a story without words. Sir. Phillips appeared in the doorway. Ms. Ward is at the gate again. Let her in. Tom placed the box on his desk. It's time we ended this. Alina looked different when she entered his study. Designer clothes replaced by department store basics. Expensive jewelry gone. Even her bearing had changed. The confident strut reduced to cautious steps. You've been busy, she said, trying to sound strong. Have I? Tom gestured to a chair. I've simply been watching. Like always. Watching. Anger crept in her voice. You've destroyed everything. My accounts, my reputation, your lover. Tom raised an eyebrow. How was Mr. Dalton enjoying Seattle? Stop playing games. Where is he really? Where he chose to be. Tom pushed the box across his desk, though he left something behind. Alina's hands shook as she opened the box. Her breath caught at the sight of the burned dog tags. What did you do to him? She whispered. Me? Nothing. Tom's voice remained calm. I simply offered choices. He made his, just like you made yours. In room 412. She tried to smile. Is that what this is about? Wounded pride? Pride. Tom actually laughed. You still don't understand. This was never about emotion. It's about consequences. Systems. Cause and effect. You're insane. No, I'm thorough. He stood, walked to the window. Did you think I didn't know about the others? Before Trey, Alina went pale. What are you talking about? The business trips that ran long. The spa weekends with mysterious charges. The pattern was there all along. I just waited. Watched. Documented. You're lying. Tom turned back to her. Would you like to see the files? The photos? The record stretching back 3 years. He smiled coldly. I know everything, Alina. Every affair. Every lie. Every betrayal. Then why wait? Why not confront me sooner? Because timing matters. Precision matters. He sat again. I needed everything perfect. Every detail documented. Every escape route closed. So you could destroy me completely. So the destruction would be absolute. Tom's voice softened. No loose ends. No recovery possible. No second chances. Alina stood abruptly, pacing the study. I could go to the police. Tell them about Trey. About the threats. Could you? Tom pulled up a document on his screen. With what evidence? Mr. Dalton is employed in Seattle. His paperwork perfect. His new life documented. It's all fake. Prove it. Tom's challenge was soft. Show one document that's forged. Find one witness who'll support you. One piece of evidence that suggests anything other than a man choosing to leave town. The dog tags were returned to you. Nothing more. He leaned forward. Tell me, how would you explain the photos? The financial records? The pattern of behavior the media's so interested in? Tears spilled down her cheeks. Please, just tell me what you want. I already have what I want. Tom's voice remained gentle. Your complete removal from my life. Your reputation in ruins. Your future. He smiled. Well, that's up to you now. Though your options seem rather limited. I'll tell everyone what you are. What you've done. Go ahead. He gestured to the door. Tell them how the brilliant tech mogul caught his wife cheating. How he divorced her legally with documented cause. How her lover chose to take a better job rather than face scandal. His eyes hardened. Tell them your version. Watch how quickly they compare it to the evidence. The photos. The records. The witnesses who've already spoken to the press. Alina sank back in her chair, defeat written in every line of her body. Why not just divorce me quietly? Why this complete destruction? Because that's what you earned. Tom's words carried no emotion. Not with the affairs. Not with the lies. But with the arrogance of thinking you could play these games in my world. My system. He stood, walked to a cabinet, poured water into a crystal glass. Did you think I wouldn't notice? That I wouldn't see every message, every meeting, every attempt at covering your tracks? He handed her the glass. I built my fortune understanding systems, Alina. Finding weaknesses, exploiting vulnerabilities. Did you really think I wouldn't apply that same expertise to my personal life? A knock at the study door interrupted them. Detective Mercer stood there, his expression grim. "Hope I'm not interrupting," he said, entering without invitation. "Not all." Tom smiled. Mrs. Ward was just leaving. Actually, Mercer pulled out his notebook. "I'd like you both to stay. Got some new information about Trey Dalton." Alina sat straighter. "You found it?" "Found his employment records, his lease, his utility bills." Mercer's eyes fixed on Tom. "All perfect. Too perfect. Perfection bothers you, detective?" Tom asked mildly. "When it's manufactured?" "Yes." Mercer stepped closer. "Been doing this job 20 years. Never seen paperwork this clean, this complete. Perhaps Mr. Dalton is simply organized. Or perhaps someone created a paper trail." Mercer turned to Alina. "You were sleeping with him, weren't you?" She glanced at Tom before answering. "Yes. And the last time you saw him was after the anniversary party." Her voice shook. "He came here to confront Tom." "Interesting." Mercer made notes. "And then he just vanished. Took a job in Seattle. Left without saying goodbye. That seemed like the Trey Dalton you knew." "No," she whispered. "Mr. Ward." Mercer's tone sharpened. "Care to explain?" "What's to explain?" Tom spread his hands. "A man made choices. Chose to leave rather than face consequences. It happens every day. With perfectly crafted paperwork? With no loose ends? With every detail so carefully documented. It looks like a movie set." Tom's smile didn't waver. "You seem troubled by efficiency, detective. By attention to detail. Is that a crime now?" "Murder is murder." Tom actually laughed. "That's quite an accusation. Based on what? Clean paperwork? A man choosing to leave town? A consensual relationship ending badly? Based on instinct?" "Ah." Tom stood slowly. "And what does your instinct say about investigating me further? About the potential impact on your career, your pension, your children's college funds?" Mercer's face hardened. "That's a threat. An observation." Tom walked to his window. "About how complex modern life has become. How interconnected everything is. Banking systems, credit scores, property records." He turned back. One small glitch in the system can cause so many problems. Clara Winslow watched from her porch as Alina's car sped down the coastal road. The old woman's eyes narrowed, recognizing the desperation in that reckless speed. "Some men don't get angry," she murmured to herself. "They bury." Inside his mansion, Tom prepared for the final act. The dog tags lay ready, their burned edges telling a story of choices and consequences. His phone buzzed with updates. Alina's last account closed, her final credit card declined, her name removed from every membership and registry that mattered. The security system announced her arrival. Through the cameras, Tom watched her emerge from her car, no longer the polished socialite, but a woman stripped of everything except determination. "Let her in," he told Phillips. "It's time to end this." Alina burst into his study, all pretense of composure gone. "You've taken everything." "Have I?" Tom remained seated, calm as ever. "Or did you lose it all yourself? My accounts, my reputation, my future, your lover?" Tom raised an eyebrow. "How was Mr. Dalton enjoying Seattle?" "Stop it." She slammed her hands on his desk. "Tell me what you did to him." "I did nothing." Tom's voice remained steady. "I offered choices. He made his, just like you made yours." In room 412, her laugh held an edge of hysteria. "Is that what this is about? Your pride?" "Pride." Tom actually smiled. "You still don't understand. This was never about emotion. It's about consequences, systems, cause and effect." He stood, walked to the window. "Did you think I wouldn't notice the pattern? The other affairs before Trey? The business trips that ran long? The spa weekends with mysterious charges?" Alina went pale. "You're lying. Would you like to see the files? The photos? The records stretching back 3 years?" He turned back to her. I know everything, Alina. Every affair. Every lie. Every betrayal. Then why wait? Why not confront me sooner? Because timing matters. Precision matters. He said again. I needed everything perfect. Every detail documented. Every escape route closed. Detective Mercer chose that moment to enter, his expression grim. Hope I'm not interrupting. Perfect timing, Detective. Tom gestured to a chair. We were just discussing choices and consequences. Like the choice that made Trey Dalton disappear. Disappear? Tom's smile didn't waver. He's in Seattle, building a new life, making better choices. With perfectly crafted paperwork, Mercer's voice hardened. With every detail, so carefully documented, it looks like a movie set. You seem troubled by efficiency, Detective. By attention to detail. I'm troubled by the absence of loose ends. Mercer stepped closer. 20 years on the job, I've never seen anything this clean. This perfect. Alina collapsed into a chair, her composure finally breaking. Tears streamed down her face as she pulled out her phone, showing them the screen. He's threatening me, sending pictures of Trey's things. Playing games. Games. Tom's voice softened dangerously. No, games are what you played, Alina. In hotel rooms. In secret meetings. This. He gestured to his screens, each showing another aspect of her ruined life. This is architecture. Design. The perfect execution of consequence. She broke completely then, sliding to her knees. You destroyed me, she sobbed. Tom's eyes were cold as winter frost. You did that yourself. Detective Mercer helped Alina to her feet. She could barely stand, her entire body shaking with sobs. Come on, he said quietly. We're done here. But Trey is in Seattle. Tom's voice carried absolute certainty. Would you like to see his new apartment? His gym membership? His utility bills? Each click showed another perfect document. Everything's there, Detective. Everything legal. Everything verified. Too verified. Mercer growled. Prove otherwise. Tom's challenge was soft. Find one document that's forged. One witness who'll contradict the official story. One piece of evidence that suggests anything but the obvious. A man chose to leave rather than face scandal. The detective's jaw tightened. This isn't over. Actually, it is. Tom stood. But before you go pursuing this further, consider something. How complex modern life has become. How vulnerable to technical difficulties. Banking systems. Credit scores. Property records. His smile never wavered. Even police pension funds can experience glitches. Mercer's face hardened. That's a threat. An observation. Tom walked to his window. About systems. And how easily they can change. After they left, Tom stood at his usual spot on the cliffs. Below, waves crashed against rocks with mindless violence. Above, seabirds wheeled through clouds stained orange by the setting sun. Detective Mercer watched from his car parked down the road. He couldn't prove anything. Couldn't touch the man who stood like a king surveying his domain. Every lead had ended in perfect documentation. Every question answered with flawless precision. The mansion gleamed behind Tom, its glass and steel surfaces reflecting golden light. No trace remained of the chaos, the betrayal, the destruction. Like its owner, the house stood pristine, perfect, untouchable. Tom's phone buzzed with a message from his lawyer. Detective Mercer's requesting transfer to another district. Family reasons, apparently. Another message arrived from Seattle. A photo of Trey Dalton's new apartment building. His car parked outside. The timestamp current. Everything documented. Everything perfect. Clara Winslow watched from her garden as the detective's car finally pulled away. She'd seen this coming. Recognized the cold calculation in Tom's eyes long before anyone else. Some men exploded when betrayed. Some men raged. But men like Tom? They planned. They waited. They executed destruction with such precision that even the ruins became part of the design. The sun sank lower, painting Tom's glass empire in shades of triumph. He raised his glass to the horizon, savoring the completion of his work. The mansion stood silent around him, purged of betrayal, wiped clean of weakness. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new battles, new victories. But tonight he savored the perfect execution of his plan. Because in his world, revenge wasn't served cold. It was served with precision, with documentation, with absolutely no possibility of escape. And that, he knew, was the most complete victory of all.